Thank you all. This is a bit of a homecoming for me. As he pointed out, I served here for about 7 years, and so I still live and work in Austin, Texas, so it's really nice to come home to UT. Go Longhorns. I'll talk about inspiring the next generation and success stories and strategies from youth outreach. This has a lot to do with workforce development and how we build the next generation of you all, really. And so, why this talk? Why now? Big thanks to Merrick and Shelby and the rest of the committee that put this meeting together to be as innovative and creative to talk about, yes, the science and the research that's going on currently, but what's next and who's going to do that work next, and how does this all apply to the people that are outside of these four walls? Because really, that's who it's affecting. And I'll talk a little bit about how we can build a bigger understanding of what we do so that we can drive a lot more impact and understanding for the research. And so this is a bit of a chart that I felt is really important for this population specifically. So technology, right? Everyone has a cell phone inside of these walls and outside of these walls. And so when we talk about critical minerals, you could have said anything to me, any of the words that our previous presenters mentioned, I would have probably known 50% of those words if you approached me in a high school, right? And so what really hits home to the audience that we are appealing to is technology, and so that's why I chose this chart here. You'll see that EVs is just skyrocketing, the need of minerals. So why this talk, why now? Because community and communication matters more now than it ever has before. Is your research dying inside of a publication? Is the only place that you talk about your research inside of walls that look like people like this, that are the only people who can understand the words that you're saying? And why are we doing this, right? And so mineral demand is exploding, but the workforce shortages are increasing as well. So as the increase for critical minerals go up, the idea of workforce shortages will be a huge threat here in the near future. And to combine those two together, really, the people are the purpose of the science. And so we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for us trying to better the environment for everyone else. And so really what I'll talk about here is that stronger, broader impacts equals a stronger workforce. I picked this up from the Department of the Interior, and they quoted that it's the lack of educational programs compounded by the lack of interest that is really going to be the reason we have experienced the shortage of properly trained workers into the future. And so there's good news to this, right? And so I know a lot of people have been affected by recent changes in federal funding. I know a lot of my colleagues have been affected, but there's really good news here, and I kind of want to point out the positives of this situation so that we can grasp a new understanding of what a broader impact really truly is. It's not just going to elementary school and sharing about rocks. It's really, really bigger than that. And so we have to really think bigger and better and broader. And so the history of federal funding in the US right after the World War II, this is a report, the Science, the Endless Frontier, this report was given to the president. Bush mentioned that basic research is the pacemaker of technological processes. So right after World War II, basically, if we want to maintain security and increase economic development, what we're going to have to do is really put a lot of effort and funding into research, into you all, if we really want to make sure that we're doing this the right way and prepared for the next generation and those to come. And so this establishes the framework for a lot of the federal funding of the basic research and emphasizes the science should be served for the public good. So all of the things that we're doing right here, if it's funded by the federal government, it should be for the public good. And I think sometimes we forget that. So here's a bit of a timeline on broader impact in general, okay? So in the 1970s, there was a re-emphasis of it. They said there needs to be a clear evidence of the public return on this investment. So this is why research is happening for the public good. 1970s, they say like, hey, did you all forget? There has to be a bigger public return on this investment. In 1997, the infamous broader impact requirement comes out in federal funding. It started with the NSF, and they said that, yes, not only do you have to have intellectual merit, this has to provide some type of an improvement, some type of a boost in our understanding and knowledge, but it also has to be for the better public good, and that is essentially broader impacts at the very core. And so this explicitly addresses that benefit that was established way back in 1970. There was a bit of, I like to always point out that, like, we don't have to have it all, okay? So there are a lot of researchers in here who are gonna be experts on broader impact. They understand the methodological approaches for social science. That is really, really wonderful. If that's not you, there's someone out there that is your opposite that can help you with these. I am one of them. There are others probably in the room, but there's others in the academic community, and you don't have to have it all. So yes, like, get focused on your intellectual merit, but then that broader impact really brings someone else on, because way back, and this is right after that the 1945 report went out to the president. In 1959, there was a researcher, an instructor at Cambridge, and he mentioned that there's two types of intellectual activity. There's the scientists, and then there's the humanists. There's a more humanistic approach, or literary humanistics, excuse me. And so there's two cultures of intellectual activity, and they don't always align, right? So, like, if you really are a scientifically focused, and I'm talking the physical sciences, because social science is a science, contrary to what most people believe, right? I am a scientist, okay? There's physical scientists. If you are focused on that, that's wonderful, but realize that there's also the other humanistic side of that approach, the social science approach, and we don't often talk to each other, but we really, really should if we want our research to really jump off the page and be relevant outside of these four walls. And so that was put together, it was actually published in 1998 by C.P. Snow. In 2000s, we began to have, like, a more formalization and expansion of what we would call a broader impacts. So you'll see that there was an adoption by other federal agencies. I saw most recently, not most recently, excuse me, but after a series of NSF proposals, I put out one at Department of Energy. I was blown away by their expectations for the methodological approaches from social scientists. I was really, really happy to see that. STEM education and scientific literacy began to be topics that people were talking about, and it also spurred other K-12 partnerships, museum exhibits. This is kind of when you saw this all kind of ramp up. Yes, there's the science, but it's not just being given to you, it's actually being experienced in museums and now through partnerships with programs that focus on youth development. This was not a mistake. This is not a mistake. It's definitely actual thought out. They had the right idea, right? In 2010, in the more recent development through the 2020, there's now open science practices, data sharing, public engagement, workforce readiness has just come out in the last 15 years. I mean, it's always been there, but now it's a real big focus. And then also industry to academic collaboration. I want to point out a few things. Outreach is definitely infrastructure. So when I talk about outreach in general, this is communication, this is engagement with people who are outside of our discipline. And so a few things here. There are 8.8 million researchers, full-time employed research. There are about 8 billion people in the world. So if you put this into perspective, we can all do math, right? This is easy math for me, right? 0.1% know what you're talking about. I want you all to know that who was ever up here, 0.1%, 0.1% know what you're actually talking about. And so unless we make this really relevant, unless we make our research very relevant, it's not, everything's fine. Unless we make our, everything's chill. Unless we make our research really relevant to, thank you so much for supporting me. At least we're both up here experiencing this together. Unless we make our research really relevant, and unless we are intentional about how we communicate, not just that we are, only 0.1% of all of the world is going to understand what we're talking about. And when we look at funding, perhaps, when we look at funding and other aspects of what we do, we need to think bigger. So this is probably, people say quality over quantity, no quantity, okay? So the more people who can understand what we do, the bigger the impact. Because as of right now, there are a few people here that understand what our big demand is, how to get it, and why it's relevant. But there are only a few people here that really experienced some funding challenges in the recent year. But really, we need to understand that everyone outside of here was affected, but they may not realize that they were affected because they just don't know how it actually is applicable to them. And that's our job and our responsibility to make sure that it is. We don't actually have to do it, but we have to hire the social scientists, we have to hire the educators to do that. There's power in numbers, so making it more resilient and more impactful is really important. And to the point that Jeff made earlier, I mentioned this to him, but we need to create a feedback loop so that it strengthens both society and science. So why youth outreach? How are you going to choose a profession you don't know anything about? And I was just talking to the state geologist and director of the Texas State Bureau, Lorena, outside, and a few other of my former colleagues, still colleagues. I kind of have an appointment here a little bit, about choosing majors before your brain even develops. So if we have to choose our major, and this is not a senior in high school when you're actually 18. You have to choose when you're 17 because you apply to school. You're thinking about applying to school your junior year throughout, and you're applying, right? So you have to know what school you want to go to and what major you want to be in before you apply to school, which is essentially 16, 17. So what are we doing to really educate that next generation on what critical minerals are and how that translates into a job for them? I got a boogie. Okay, there's a lack of exposure to scientists, and it limits career imagination. I don't know where you all from, but in the middle of north central Ohio, where I grew up, I don't know if we had any scientists there. We had a lot of farmers, a lot of doctors, and teachers. Those are my career paths. I decided to go into biology to become a doctor, which is clearly not what I am, kind of in a way, but not really an MD. So if we aren't able to communicate what it is we do and how that translates at all into a profession, it's going to be really hard for someone to pick geology. And this is statistics from the National Center of Educational Statistics pointed out in 2019, but I don't work here anymore, so I haven't done the next revision was in 2025, so I haven't looked at it. But it hasn't changed much. In 2019, 0.1% of every student that enters college chooses earth science as a major. 0.1%. Dean Moore, you're doing a great job, because she said 400 students are a part of our undergraduate program here at the Jackson School. Great. How many students are a part of the undergraduate degree program? About 40,000? Perfect. You're doing a good job. Do the math, that's 1%. We're doing a great job. So it's 0.4% versus 1%, right? We're doing a great job here, but how many other institutions are doing their job? And how many researchers are helping them out? So early engagement really is that key to workforce development. A couple pro tips here. Traditional science education is often passive and disconnected. So it's like me talking to you on what you probably should be doing, and whether that really resonates with you or not, I don't know about you all. I have an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old. It's not gonna fly. I can't tell you how many times I've asked them to clean their room or make their bed. It's just not gonna happen. And so you really have to make sure that your science is translated off the paper, off of a podium, off of a lecture, and into something experiential. This here said science education or science STEM. It said STEM. The quote said STEM, but it may feel. But I'm just gonna add critical minerals because critical minerals is science. But it may feel abstract, unattainable, or irrelevant to many students. Yeah, because I don't even know. I did a lot of research before I got here, and I'm much older than students are these days. So how do we communicate what we do with students, and how do we inspire the next generation if they don't know the words that we're using? And so this is the power of experiential learning. Really, it's collaboration and exploration at its finest. What we want to do is make sure that we encourage the full spectrum of roles from research and development all the way through operations. So I'll talk about a program that I hold really dear to my heart that I'm no longer a part of, but it's really important. But in any youth outreach, any outreach, if you have an opportunity to build not just the sciencey roles into your engagement with students, but also other things like I have a feeling, and I'm not in the space, but I have a feeling that critical minerals is a lot more than just about the science, right? Don't we have to buy and sell? Don't we have to trade? Isn't there safety that's associated with it? Isn't there like industry and insurance, right? There's so many things that are built into critical minerals that I'm not really sure that we're thinking fully about when we develop some of these youth programs that engage students. So now we're not just appealing to the scientists. Now we're appealing to the people who love business. And now we're appealing to the social scientists because we should also think about the next generation, educating them and training them to also incorporate the next generation. So are there social scientists in the groups that you create, right? So making sure that when we're doing this, we are building the whole portfolio, not just a few scientists. And so it also bridges the silos between academia, government, and industry. Honestly, thanks so much for hiring me, Dean Moore. I don't think Dean Moore was here when I got hired, but anyway, the point is I was so thankful for this position because I was introduced to organizations, industry, mentors for the students, scientists who could speak to the content. I had such a big network. You should see my LinkedIn. It's going off because so many people were really involved when you start communicating that this is a workforce development effort. So many people want to get involved with it. And so you can really bridge those silos between industry, corporation, academia in really awesome projects. And so Geoforce, I'm so privileged to be able to talk about it today, but I won't be the person that talks to you about it in the future. So they hired a really great individual, Dr. Jessica Bent, and she gave me the approval to speak about the program, but this is probably one of my last times to do it. So I take it with a lot of honor. And so Geoforce Texas is a youth outreach program at the University of Texas at Austin Jackson School of Geosciences. It's a 4-year program. And so students are taken from all over South and Central Texas, and it's an application, so it's a bit of a tough go at it to get into the program, but students are taken over the course of 4 years to really incredible field sites all over the country. So South Texas and to the Texas Gulf Coast. They take them to the Pacific Northwest and then the American Southwest as well. And so in each of those 3 years that they are outside experiencing geoscience, earth science, they're also communicating with friends and going on flights and rooming with their buddies and having those conversations. So do I know exactly what increases interest? No, because that's a lot. Those are a lot of factors to take into consideration. And at the time I was the director of the program. So the credibility isn't there. But I know that built into all of those experiences and all of the things that these students experience, there's building interest, and I'll show you in the next slide how we did that. And so this is a little dated, and I'm sure that there's more up-to-date reports, and I'm sure Dean Mora and the rest of the Jackson School can talk to you about the brilliance of the program. But there's over 1,700 alumni at this point of the program. The things that I really want to point out here are that 68% of the college freshmen pursue STEM degrees. That is absurd. That's like literally insane. When I left, there were 14% of the students chose geoscience as a major. Earth science, excuse me. Earth science is a major. That is a big, big thing. 14%, we talked about the 0.4 from the National Center of Educational Statistics, 14% from this program chose earth science. It's working. Okay, 6 minutes. When it's done right, this is what it looks like. The programs are student-centered, they're long-term, and they're relationship-driven. We center community knowledge and lived experience. So why is it relevant to you? So we can grab you out of your community and we can take you on all of these experiences. But then if someone doesn't mentor you to tell you how this can affect you, your community, and your family, that you now have to go back to and say, I choose earth sciences, when they thought you were going to be a doctor or a lawyer or something that they know about, that's going to be a problem, right? So we have to make sure that we make what we're doing relevant to people where they are. And also including mentorship and pathways beyond the program. Those touch points are so, so, so important. This is a call to action for everyone in the room. Let's reframe outreach as workforce development. When you say things like science, education, youth, outreach, sometimes it just gets overlooked and passed by, and science education is getting cut. I'm just letting y'all know. Workforce development, training, because really that's what we're doing. Scaling academic programs, certifications, and apprenticeships. You don't have to have it all. Look to the next person. Look to corporations and organizations and industry that want to partner with you to offer your students an opportunity to learn. Foster cross-sector partnerships and align with national and international priorities. This is really, really important. What's your goal? Why do you want to be here? Like, what actually comes out of your broader impact when you take that leap and you engage with youth? Make sure it has an overarching national priority to make you relevant. And then anticipate future skills and demand and train proactively, which is the same point that I made prior. So these key takeaways are to invest in the people, to secure supply chains, right? Like, we actually need this kind of work. So we need the next generation of you, and we need a lot more of you. Based on the first slide that I had, we need like this room times like 100. I'm just throwing that out there. So like, what are we gonna do? Align broader impacts with workforce development, and then also science is for the people. If we're really building workforce capacity builds societal resilience. So we take our science, we make it more relevant to more people, and now more people are interested in the science that you're doing, and so now it becomes an issue, because when it was just you that cared about it, or the people in this room, it wasn't really relevant. But when you now make sure that it's relevant to everybody outside of this room, you have a lot of people fighting for you. That's it.